Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and Srila Prabhupada, our translator, commentator, and dear most spiritual master. So today we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 11th chapter, the last verse, which is text 35. And this chapter is the perfect society for social classes. Yasya ya lakshanam proktam pungso varnabhivyanjakam yad yanyatrapi drishyeta tat tanaiva vinirdishet yasya la lakshanam proktam yasya ya lakshanam proktam pungso varna vivyanjakam yaranyatra pidrisyeta tattenaiva vinirdishet yasya ya lakshanam proktam pungso varna vivyanjakam yaranyatra pidrisyeta tattenaiva vinirdishet. Yat, which, lakshanam, symptom, proktam, described above, pungsa, of a person, varna abhivyanjakam, indicating the classification of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, etc. Yat, if, anyatra, elsewhere, api, also, drishyeta, is seen, tad, that, tena, by that symptom, eva, certainly, vinirdishet, one should designate. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. If one shows the symptoms of being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra, as described above, even if he has appeared in a different class, he should be accepted according to those symptoms of classification. Please repeat. If one shows the symptoms of being a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, as described above, even if he has appeared in a different class, he should be accepted according to those symptoms of classification. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Herein it is clearly stated by Sri Narada Muni that one should not be accepted as a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra according to birth. For although this is going on now, it is not accepted by the Shastras. As stated in Bhagavad-Gita 4.13, Chaturvarnya mayasrishtam guna karma vibhagashaha. The four divisions of society, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, are to be ascertained according to qualities and activities. If one was born in a Brahmin family and has acquired the Brahminical qualifications, he is to be accepted as a Brahmin. Otherwise, he should be considered a Brahmin Bandhu. Similarly, if a Shudra acquires the qualities of a Brahmana, although he was born in a Sudra family, he is not a Sudra. Because he has developed the qualities of a Brahmana, he should be accepted as a Brahmin. The Krishna consciousness movement is meant to develop these Brahminical qualities. Regardless of the community in which one was born, if one develops the qualities of a Brahmin, he should be accepted as a Brahmin. And he then may be offered the order of sannyas. Unless one is qualified in terms of the Brahminical symptoms, one cannot take sannyas. In designating a person a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, birth is not the essential symptom. This understanding is very important. Herein Narada Muni distinctly says that one may be accepted according to the caste of his birth if he has the corresponding qualifications, but otherwise he should not. One who has attained the qualifications of a Brahmin, regardless of where he was born, should be accepted as a Brahmana. Similarly, if one has developed the qualities of a Shudra or a Chandala, regardless of where he was born, he should be accepted in terms of those symptoms. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 7th Canto, 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Perfect Society for Social Classes. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today is the appearance day of Srivas Pandit, or Srivas Thakur, one of the principal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so part of the class will devote to speaking a little bit about him. Om Ajnana Timanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtavitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Shvapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savarutam Purishana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I ask the blessings of my senior God brothers. Please bless me so I can say something useful, and the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna. Feeling most fortunate and most unqualified to speak something about Srimad Bhagavatam in Sri Vrindavan Dham, but as I've been requested and it's my duty, I'll do my best attempt. So this is the end of the chapter of the 4 social orders. And as Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, that the Krishna consciousness movement is meant to develop these Brahminical qualities. Samodamas tapasaucham kshantir arjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam ashtikyam Brahma karma shabhavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. So the human life is considered in Kali Yuga, the lifespan is generally not more than 100 years. And nowadays, if one lives 100 years, they're considered to be quite old. My mother actually lived to 99, and I was blessed to be able to take care of her in her later days. And my prayer is that somehow or other I can live a long life and try to do something to repay the unpayable debt which Srila Prabhupada has given me. So within this short life, and indeed it is a short life, although it's quite bewildering how, even though our lifespan is so short, I guess comparatively in terms of other living entities in different species of life on this planet, it's rather long. But there are living entities even on this planet that live up to 5,000 years, like trees. In the higher planetary systems, what to speak of Brahmaloka, the lifespan is incredulous in relation to human calculations. But as King Yudhisthira so aptly said, this is really the most wonderful thing in this lifetime, that although we have full experience that everyone and everything in this life on this earth is dying, still this material illusion is so strong that we think it's not going to happen to me. At least I know myself personally, that illusion is so strong. And I keep putting off the process of surrender to another time, to another day, to a more favorable situation, which actually never comes, because the false ego is expert at keeping me in this material world, in material illusion, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And it might not be so difficult if we just had a few previous lifetimes, but there's 8,400,000 species of life. We have no idea how long we've been traveling throughout all these unconscious species. And therefore, since time immemorial, we've been playing this endless, fruitless game of material enjoyment. So in this lifetime, the idea is that we can live a comfortable life, that we can satisfy our senses as much as they need, and devote our life to spiritual perfection. And therefore the Lord has created the most scientific varnashram system so that everyone can be engaged according to their propensity. And so this system is scientific. It's been existing in time, since time immemorial. It's existing now, although the demarcations are not very obvious. Yet it was created by Krishna originally, and the system is eternally existing within the material world. Just like our body has different parts, we have legs, a stomach, arms, and a head, and so these are representative of the different varnas. Legs are the Shudras, the worker class, the productive class, the Vaishyas are compared to the stomach. The Kshatriyas, the arms, give protection to the body, and the head is considered the Brahmins. And so we can exist somehow or other without a leg or without an arm. Stomach is pretty important. Although I heard a story about a Mataji a devotee actually wrote a book about her. I'll just regress a little bit because it's kind of an amazing story. She was originally from South Africa, grew up with her, grandfather, people like that who were somewhat pious, but had no background in Krishna consciousness, was not following principles or anything. Later in her life, she ended up coming to the U.S., and she worked in a hospital in, I believe it was Dallas, and she was an assistant to the surgeons, and she was a workaholic and considered very, very valuable, because she would, whenever she was asked to take someone else's shift who couldn't come, she would come, ended up working long hours. She ended up having a very erratic lifestyle, and she started eating all kind of different things in between work because she was working so much. She was at the hospital for so long, eating potato chips, so many things. Finally, she started having a problem with her stomach, and it became more and more serious. Finally, I believe it was perhaps stomach cancer. Finally, they had to cut out part of her stomach, but she kept working her job. She became aware at that time of the Krishna consciousness movement and started visiting the temple. Her health started denigrating more and more, and eventually she had to have most of her stomach cut out, and she was living intravenously, and she had all kind of basically in her home just was living off tubes and things. Fortunately at that time she was a devotee, and she had the desire. The doctor said, you have, I think it was 4 months to live. So she decided she would come to Vrindavan Dham and leave her body. So she made all kind of arrangements. It was incredibly expensive. I think it was something like $75,000 to transport her and all her, intravenous, medical supplies, paraphernalia to India. So she did that. She was hooked up intravenously, and basically a couple months passed, and obviously there was no improvement. She couldn't eat anything solid. She had basically hardly any stomach left at all. So then, I think at this point, she had a month to live or something. And it was Janmashtami. And she got totally fed up, and she said, I can't live like this anymore. She said, it's better I just die. So she told her caregiver, she said, pull out all the plugs, pull out all the intravenous things. And their words says, you can't live, you're going to die. She goes, it's Janmashtami, I'm going to honor some Krishna Prashadam. So they pulled out all her plugs, and they gave her a little Prashadam. She became violently sick. She threw up again and again. She refused to put in her intravenous system again. Devotees were expecting that very soon, maybe within a week or something, she was going to pass away. But then they started pureeing things for her, and gradually she started being able to assimilate her food a little bit. She started getting more strength gradually, and then she decided one day, she started, walking around and things. She decided one day that she wanted to go on parikrama of Govardhan. And so I guess they carried her part of the way, and she went there when they had, different parikrams, different, I think Dinabandhu, different devotees were leading the parikram. So she learned many things during that time. Gradually she started getting more and more strength, and all of a sudden, a year passed, and she was doing full, it's like inconceivable, full parikrams around Govardhan. She would actually walk so fast, hardly anyone could keep up with her. and then she would help so many devotees who got sick and stuff. She lived, I think it was 8 years in that condition. So anyway, most of us need our stomachs. Stomachs are compared to the Vaishyas. The head are the Brahmanas. And so if, we get a leg cut off or an arm cut off or whatever, even maybe a stomach mostly removed, we can somehow or other survive. But we can't exist very long without a head. I think there's some, just like chickens get chopped off and their body flutters a little bit. A very short period of time anyway, without a head. So it's the most important part of the body, it's the most important part of the society, and therefore Srila Prabhupada said this Krishna consciousness movement is meant for training Brahmins, because these qualities are developing these qualities is the perfection of life. Because without these qualities, we cannot make any tangible spiritual advancement. And so, like Srila Prabhupada says elsewhere in his writing, that qualities such as these, we can judge ourselves, how we are advancing, at what level we're at in Krishna consciousness, in terms of the quality and the depth of these qualities that we've developed. The most important part of Krishna consciousness, the most important thing in our day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-by-year evolution of Krishna consciousness, is also the most difficult thing, is to know where we're at any particular given time in our lifetime, where we're at spiritually. And that's why Srila Prabhupada says that if anyone thinks he can make spiritual advancement outside the association of devotees, he's living in a great, I think he used the word hallucination. So it's devotees are like mirrors, and it's such an incredible support system also, because we all go through peaks and valleys in our Krishna consciousness, and I can't imagine where I'd be without the support of devotees. And of course, we should always be aspiring for the association of more advanced devotees, because we always want to have our devotion, or in my case, so-called devotion, tested to see where we're at and how we're advancing in Krishna consciousness. I'm thinking, especially here in Vrindavan Dham, more and more, that this process, for me at least, it's an impossible process. It's impossible. I mean, Srila Prabhupada executed the impossible, because to pull us up from such a low mindset, mentality that we were born in the West is inconceivable that we could even take to the process of Krishna consciousness. And as Srila Prabhupada aptly said, I have created your good fortune. So this Varnashram is very important. Srila Prabhupada gave special importance to it during especially the last year he was here. There's that famous conversation in Mayapur where Prabhupada's speaking with the devotees. And by the questions of the devotees, you can understand they have really no idea what Prabhupada's saying. Prabhupada's talking about the Varnashram and the importance of Varnashram. And I think one of the real elusive things about Varnashram is it's the supreme equalizer, so to speak. I mean, Krishna consciousness ultimately is the equalizer. But Varnashram Daivi Varnashram is a vehicle by which all the different classes of society can be elevated to come to the common platform of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada speaking with the devotees, talking about Varnashram, saying this Varnashram is really important, we should institute it in our society, we should institute a Varnashram university. And then Prabhupada stops and he said, so turns to his devotees, mostly GBC men, sannyasis. He said, so how many men are we controlling in our movement, is the way Prabhupada said it. And the devotees like, huh? Prabhupada said, how many devotees are in our temples? And I think it was Rameshwar, Prabhu replied, oh, Prabhupada, maybe 30, average 30, 40 devotees in a temple, some a few more, some less, like that. And Srila Prabhupada said, that's fine. He said, if we just want a movement of Brahmins, he said, that's fine. Devotees come, they follow the principles, we'll initiate them, and they'll stay in the temples. We can do some book distribution and just have a society of Brahmins. He said, that's fine. He said, but that is not devotee. He said, devotee means para dukkha dukhi, that a devotee has compassion for everyone. And if we really want to spread the Krishna consciousness on a wide basis, then we have to institute this Varnashram. So it's hoped that the Brahmins within our society and the devotees who are developing Brahminical qualifications can get together and can try to figure out in this age of Kali, because there's very few specific. Prabhupada didn't stay long enough to give us any specifics how to develop it. Yet he told it is very important that we have to do it. So we're hoping with the purified intelligence of our society that we can figure out how to do it, and to do it quickly because we're running out of time. So I think we'll stop here, and maybe if there's any quick questions or comments, we can go there and then read about Srivas Pandit. It just takes a minute. You have to wait until it comes.
So my question is, so Ramananda Roy was talking, and then Lochitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy talk about Varna Arjuna. Lochitanya Mahaprabhu rejected. So the question is, then why did he rejected? And you mentioned how it's important to have Varna Arjuna. So this is about what he said, because he said 50% of my work is done, but the other 50% is to start with Varna Arjuna.
Yeah, good question. The question is, why, when Lord Chaitanya was speaking to Ramananda Roy, that he, in the context of that discussion, Lord Chaitanya rejected Varnashram and said, go higher. Of course, he rejected it in the context of that conversation, that there are higher concepts. Varnashram in itself is a vehicle. It's a tool to use in Krishna's service. And of course, it's pretty much accepted by everyone. And as Srila Prabhupada himself says, we cannot perfectly institute Varnashram now. There's going to have to be some form of it. But it's simply going to make it easier for people to take to Krishna consciousness. So some aspect in terms of Daivi Varnashram must be instituted, and we have to figure out how to do it. It's not the highest principle. The highest principle is to develop pure love of Krishna. Mam cheyo vyabhicharena bhakti-yoga sevate sagunan samathityaitam brahmabhuya kalpate. That this is the demarcation. When we get to that point of unfailing determination in Krishna consciousness, and under any condition, one is on that platform where he does not fall down, then he doesn't need the Varnashram system anymore. But I think it was kind of obvious that Prabhupada, in terms of what was happening in the movement, with so many, sannyasis and people. I mean, look what happened when Prabhupada left the planet. Practically all the leaders in the society, on one degree or another, fell down. So I don't think there's any question as to the importance that we need to develop Daivi Varnashram. And it wasn't that Lord Chaitanya rejected it, but he, all the acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur especially, talk about the importance of developing Varnashram. But in the context of what is lower and higher of what they were talking about, then it was, he was asking Ramananda to go higher. Something else, Maharaj?
Thank you. You said that at the end we have to be very careful what we say because he didn't reject it. And with devotees, it's the same conversation we're talking about, 1977 with Hari Sami and such. So they also argued about that. He said, no, he didn't reject it. He said it's Yaya, it's external. And then, they were also arguing, but we're just, just chant the holy name, that's our process. The Prophet asked, who is chanting? So, in reference to that, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a purport of the Harinama homes. So I said, that's for liberated souls. But because we unfortunately have to initiate non-liberated souls, so therefore community worship is important. Study worship is important. And Varnashram is important for those who can't just be chant. Otherwise they will not be able to be elevated, as you said. They will just fall down and then what?
Very nice, thank you, Maharaj. And just to elaborate a little bit on that, there's another discussion Prabhupada had, and they're talking about New Vrindavan. Prabhupada said all the devotees should go to New Vrindavan. And Rameshwar said, well, Prabhupada, we have grahastas, they're living in the cities, they have jobs, wouldn't it be better they live in the city, they have their job, they make their home a temple? Prabhupada said, job? He said, that job, those jobs will very soon be finished. He said, very soon, and who knows when, but very soon, as Kali Yuga progressed, he said, there will be no jobs. And there was another discussion with Rameshwar, where Rameshwar, I think only Rameshwar Prabhu was there. Prabhupada told Rameshwar that there will be huge no jobs in the city. He said there will be mass exodus. He didn't say hundreds or thousands. He said millions of people will be leaving the cities. And he said we should have farms and we should be able to accept them.
As far as the idea of rejecting Varnashram, Lord Chaitanya rejected it from Roy as being the ultimate conclusion of devotional service, as being the way to ultimate devotional service. We have to remember that the Brahmins are very, Bhagavad-Gita 335 or 337, whichever one there. The devotees are very rare, extremely rare. Everybody else needs, and it's our responsibility to bring, ultimately, to organize the Varnashram system for all the other people, because devotees are rare. Everyone else, including most devotees like me, need the Varnashram system for their own elevation. And so it's our responsibility to provide that. As was said the other day in class, at least 80% of the population will be Sudra. Even under the deity system, they got to do all the work. And a very small proportion of the population would be Brahmin. So and even smaller may be Brahmin Vaishnava. So
And-
for everyone other than the Vaishnava Brahmins, the Varnashram is essential. Deity Varnashram.
Yes, Prabhu. Behind you.
Thanks. So you were giving the example of Mataji, she was suffering and how long it took. You see, that is death is having the time. If I am suffering, I am going to die. But the death is not there, I cannot die. So whenever the time is fixed, how you are going to die and when you are going to die. So these things we should understand. When we are suffering, we feel that I should die. But my time is not yet come. So when the time comes, that time the death comes.
Very nice, thank you. Yeah, and we should think also, we should accept death with open arms. Because the real death is not death of this body. The real death is death of our false ego. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta has written nice essays on that. How, we should pray and we should work vigorously for that death of our false ego. So now I think we need to read a little bit about Srivas Thakur. Today is his holy appearance day. Of course, he's the one principal associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, eternal associate of the Lord. He represents the marginal living entity, Tatashta Jiva. The devotees headed by Srivas are described as Lord Chaitanya's smaller limbs, his face, eyes, hands, disc, and other weapons. And in the Adi Leela, where it first talks about Srivas Thakur as one of the limbs of Lord Chaitanya, it says, no one can, although there is so-called higher and lower devotees, in the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no one is lower and no one is higher. Everyone is considered equally like that. Shri Vrindavan Das Thakur, who was the Vyasadeva of Shri Gaurasundar's pastimes, has sung the praises of Srivas Pandit in this way. He says that it was in Srivas Pandit's house that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enacted his pastimes of Sankirtan. Those four brothers, Srivas, Sri Ram, Sripati, and Trinidhi, were continuously engaged in singing the names of Sri Krishna. They worshipped Sri Krishna and bathed in the Ganges three times daily. These four brothers previously lived in the district of Srihata. Later on, they came to reside in the banks of the Ganges. There they regularly used to attend the assembly of devotees who gathered at Sri Advaitacharya's house to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and engage in congregational chanting of the holy names. Gradually, the brothers became very close friends of Sri Jagannath Mishra, with whom they'd also chant and listen to the Bhagavatam with. In all matters, Srivas was the leader of the four brothers. By the strength of his devotion, he could understand that Sri Krishna was going to appear in the house of Jagannath Mishra. Srivas Pandit's wife was named Sri Malini Devi. She was a very close friend of Sri Sachi Devi and was always very helpful for her. Seeing the wretched state of fallen living entities in Kali Yuga, the devotees began to plaintively pray to the Lord for their deliverance. Just as Sri Advaitacharya from Shantipur could understand that the Lord had appeared, similarly Srivas and some of the other devotees of Navadvip also understood. So as we hear, Advaitacharya was the one calling, Lord Chaitanya for his appearance and roaring, for his appearance. So similarly, Srivas, other devotees were also calling like that. Since previously Malini Devi was engaged in attending Sachi Devi, Srivas and Jagannath Mishra came to her at this time and hinted she was especially needed now. As long as the Lord chose not to reveal himself, no one can possibly recognize him. So even though from his childhood the Lord exhibited many supernatural abilities, still, due to his deluding potency, the devotees could not fully understand his true nature. Their hearts were simply filled with parental affection for him, without a trace of awe and reverence. Srivas and Malini gave Sachi Devi and Jagannath Mishra much advice on how to raise their new son. Srivas and Malini were just like a mother and father to Sri Gaurasundar. Because young Nimai Pandit seemed to have grown arrogant by his scholarship, one day Srivas Pandit decided to give him good counsel. And he said, "Why do people study? So that they might understand what is devotion to Sri Krishna." He told Nimai, "If by scholarship one doesn't gain devotion to Sri Krishna, then how will that learning help him? It becomes simply a tedious endeavor, which in the end is nothing but a waste of time. If you have actually learned something, then begin your worship of Sri Krishna now. Make haste. This is the purpose of your life," preaching to Sri Chaitanya. Nimai laughed as he replied, "By your mercy, certainly that will come to be. If you are all kind enough for me, then definitely I'll attain devotion to Sri Krishna's lotus feet." Then Mahaprabhu went to Gaya and took initiation from Ishvarapuri. One day in an ecstatic mood, Lord Gauranga entered Srivas's house asking, "Srivas, whom do you worship? Whom do you meditate upon? Now with your own eyes, see that person standing before you." It's from the Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Bhagavat. Saying this, Mahaprabhu entered the deity room within Srivas's home temple and sat down on the Singhasan of Lord Vishnu, revealing his own forearm form, holding conch, disc, club, and lotus flower. Seeing this form, Srivas was totally stupefied. Sri Gaurasundar then said, "Due to being called by your Sankirtan and the loud roaring of Sri Advaitacharya, I have left Vaikuntha and have descended upon this mortal world, accompanied by my eternal associates. I will destroy the miscreants and deliver the pious. Now, without fear, you can chant my glories. Hearing these words of the Lord, which dispelled all fear, Srivas Thakur fell on the ground, offering his obeisances. Then he began to recite hymns in praise of the Lord. My obeisances at the lotus feet of the support of the entire universe, Vishwambar, whose bodily color is like that of a newly arrived rain cloud, and wears the lotus feet. And wears garments like the color of a thunderbolt. My obeisances at the lotus feet of the son of Sachi, who is bedecked with ornaments of peacock feathers and a garland of red beads, Kunjamal. My obeisances at the lotus feet of the pupil of Gangadas, the beauty of whose lotus face conquers that of 10 million moons. My obeisances at your lotus feet, you who carry a buffalo horn, stick, and flute. The 4 Vedas have proclaimed you to be the son of Nanda. Unto you, my dear Lord, my obeisances I offer again and again. Today my birth, my activities, my everything has become successful. Today my very existence has been crowned with the greatest auspiciousness. Today the race of my forefathers has finally borne fruit, and my house, which was also their house, has become blessed. Today the great fortune of my eyes is completely beyond calculation, because I have been able to see that person whose lotus feet are served by the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi. Having described the glories of Shri Gaura Sundar in various ways, Shri Gaura Sundar showed even more compassion to Srivas by revealing himself to all his family members. Seeing the niece of Srivas Pandit present before him, Mahaprabhu called her, Narayani, call upon Sri Krishna with tears in your eyes. And immediately this little girl, only 4 years of age, as if in a delirious frenzy, began to cry out, Hare Krishna, while shedding tears incessantly. In fact, a flood of tears coursed down her body to such an extent that the ground around her feet became soaked. That's also from the Madhya of Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur. Seeing little Narayani totally agitated in ecstatic love, Srivas' wife and even the household servants also began to shed tears of love. The courtyard of Srivas took on a very beautiful appearance, being decorated with ecstatic love for Krishna. There was one maidservant of Srivas Pandit's house by the name of Duki. Every day she used to bring water from the Ganga for Mahaprabhu's bath. One day, appreciating her service, Gaurachundar asked Srivas, who brings this water? Duki brings it, Srivas replied. Mahaprabhu said, from today her name is Suki. Thus the Lord indicated that those who serve the Lord and the Lord's devotees are not Duki, sad. Rather, they are Shuki, happy. At this time, Shri Gaura Sundar began his Leela as the Yuga avatar at the house of Srivas Pandit. Having been reunited with Sri Nityananda Prabhu, he started congregational chanting of the Lord's holy names in the courtyard of Srivas's house. Nityananda Prabhu took up his residence there. Sri Malini Devi served Nityananda as though he were her own son. Can you imagine that? Nityananda Prabhu residing in your own house. Sri Nityananda Prabhu was actually Sri Baladev himself. And in his pastimes as Lord Nityananda, he behaved somewhat like a madman. He was always overwhelmed by love of Krishna and was not aware of the state of his outward dress or ornaments. One evening, Shri Gaura Sundar, accompanied by his associates, was engaged in chanting and dancing at the house of Srivas when one of Srivas Thakur's sons passed away after having suffered the effects of some disease. Within the inner apartment of his house, the women began to wail in lamentation at the boy's untimely death. Srivas Pandit, who was outside in the courtyard, understood some tragedy must have taken place. He quickly entered the house only to find that his son, his only son, had passed on to the next world. As he was a very grave devotee and completely conversant in the science of the absolute truth, he was able to console the women in their grief. And he said, quote, you are all aware of Krishna's glories, so please restrain yourself and don't cry. Whoever during this last moment hears the Lord's holy name, even though he might be the greatest sinner, attains Krishna's abode. And that incomparably wonderful Lord, he whose glories are sung by all his servants up to and including Lord Brahma, is now personally dancing in the courtyard of your house. This moment is so, he continued, this moment is so auspicious that it is sure that this boy has successfully completed his journey from this world. Is there anything to be lamented at in this? His good fortune is completely assured. I can understand that whatever part I have played in this is also crowned with success. He concluded by telling them, if you can't control your emotions because of your family affection to the boy, then at least don't cry now. You can cry later. The Supreme Lord of Gokula himself, Shri Gaurasundar, is performing Sankirtan accompanied by his devotees in this house. If due to your crying, the happiness that he has experienced from dancing in ecstasy during Sankirtan is disturbed, then I will just this minute jump in the Ganges and thus give up my own life. And he continued, not a blade of grass moves unless by Krishna's will. To see in this happiness or distress or knowledge of ignorance is simply imagination. To know that whatever Krishna wills is good, and thus, giving up your own selfish desires, become free from confusion and unnecessary botheration. Krishna is giving and Krishna is maintaining everyone. Sometimes he protects and sometimes he destroys, all according to his will. If someone contemplates something contrary to Krishna's will, then as a result of his desire, he will only get torment. Giving up all lamentations, simply hear Krishna's names, and thus pass through all difficulties, feeling great happiness. Thus, your desires will be actually fulfilled. Shivas Thakur ki jai. Having given all these instructions to those present, it's so nice. I mean, it's one thing hearing about their life, but to hear the direct instructions of an eternal associate of the Lord like that is so nice, huh? Having given all these instructions to those present, Srivats again went outside to join Mahaprabhu in ecstatic chanting and dancing. The women, leaving the dead body, came to hear the kirtan of Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu continued his chanting until the middle of the night. When everyone was at last leaving to take rest, Mahaprabhu spoke. Today my mind is feeling some tribulation. I think some sad event has occurred in Srivas's house. The Pandit replied, what possible unhappiness could there be in that person's house where your divinely blissful countenance is seen? And this is Srivas after his only son has died. Mahaprabhu said, Srivas, why wasn't I feeling bliss in Kirtan today? What inauspicious thing transpired in your house? Srivas answered, my Lord, you are yourself all auspicious. Where you are present, no sorrow can be found anywhere. But then the other devotees informed the Lord that Srivas's son had passed away. Hearing this news, Gaura Raya cried out, alas, what a tragic event. Why didn't you tell me of this unfortunate news before? I will explain, Srivas Pandit replied. I couldn't tolerate disturbing you while you were enjoying Sankirtan. If one of my sons dies, what sorrow is there in that for me? If we all die while seeing you, that would be actually a matter of great happiness. On the other hand, if you would have to stop dancing, then perhaps I would have died. My Lord, this was the danger that I feared, and thus I didn't tell you at the time. Seeing Srivas Pandit's profound devotion, Shri Gaurasundar said, how can I give up such company as this? With tears in his eyes, he continued, due to love for me, he didn't even feel lamentation at the death of his son. How will I abandon their companionship? Then the Lord continued to cry, and the devotees began to worry within, having heard him speak of leaving them. Then Mahaprabhu came where the body of the dead infant was lying. Touching it, he said, boy, why are you going away and leaving Srivas Pandit? The life of the child immediately returned at the touch of Mahaprabhu's hand. After offering obeisances, the Lord replied, O Prabhu, whatever you ordain is absolute. No one can do anything but what is sanctioned by you. As many days as I was destined to remain here, that many days I have stayed. Now my time is elapsed. I have proceeded to leave. My Lord, I have taken birth and died repeatedly, But this time, at the time of death, I passed away quite happily, having taken darshan of your beautiful face. There's more, I think, but I think we should stop so we can honor the schedule everyone take prasadam. Shivas Pandit ki jai, Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
His Grace Bhanabhata
Don't.
Prabhu ki.
Prabhu, don't say that.